Father, again, for the novelty and nobility of this moment, hence this movement, I give you praise. For the wonder of your presence, the worth of your person, and for the wealth of your provision, indeed I give you praise. And prompt me now, I pray afresh to preach. Refresh my thoughts, retool my tongue. Spirit of the living God, anew, revivify my interior. God, speak this morning. We long to hear your voice. Transcend mortal ambiguities in clarity. God, speak to us, for we long to hear your voice. In the blessed name of Jesus the Christ. Amen. Well, let's give our God a corporate hand of praise. I feel deeply privileged, dynamically blessed. Indeed, there is a profundity to my presence that words cannot utter, neither can I articulate. But I must say to you that I'm glad to be here. I'm so honored to be in the presence of your pastor. Proximity to such a persona produces profanity. Indeed, I'm made better because of who your pastor is. And I bless God for the privilege to share in this work that the Lord has given to your stewardship. Sister Woods is always a transformative blessing. And I say that to say, and that to hear her sing takes one dimensionally to new levels of worship. Thank you for sharing with us. God, it's a good day to be alive. And just for the privilege to be alive, I pause to praise my God afresh. It's good to be alive. I share my intentions from the commencement of our time shared in corporate worship. I'll be here for the next 2 nights in revival. And I shared earlier this morning that I had resolved coming here that for the 4 sermonic offerings, I would talk thematically in reference to your theme. So I wanted to really take Acts chapter 17, and I wanted, no, I'm not going there. I'm trying to conversationally share with you my intent, hence my intentions upon coming here. I was going to look at chapter 17, and for 4 services, I was going to deal with chapter 17. I was going perhaps to craft the units. I was going to produce the pericopes and parameters by which I would preach 4 sermons. But the Lord overwhelmed me this morning and gave me perhaps new pieces for the morning services that I had not planned. Now, I will tell you that Monday and Tuesday, I will talk from Acts chapter 17. I had also, you can turn me down, I'm going to rise later. Turn me down a little bit. But I won't tell you that I had even purpose in transition to finish what I commenced this morning at the 8:30 service. And this morning I talked about the art of stewardship what makes the great great. And I was going to finish that sermonic offering for this service, but somewhere in transition it changed. And so I won't finish, though textually I'll profile the same passages. But I feel like the Lord wants me to say something different. And so from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23, the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23, I want to read 10 verses, and of course extensively. I try not to do this often, but for the sake of context, I want to read verses 33 through 43. 33 through 43. Reading from the New American Standard Version of Holy Writ, I commence with verse 33. When they came to the place called the Skull, there they and the other saying, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Verse 34. But Jesus was saying, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. And they cast lots, dividing up his garments among themselves. And the people stood by looking on, and even the rulers were sneering at him, saying, He saved others, let him save himself, if this is the Christ of God, his chosen one. The soldiers also mocked him, coming up to him, offering him sour wine, and saying, If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself. Now there was also an inscription above him, This is the King of the Jews. One of the criminals who were hanged there were hurling abuse at him, saying, Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us. But the other answered and rebuking him said, Do you not even fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed are suffering justly, for we are receiving what we deserve for our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong. And he was saying, Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom. And he said to him, Truly, I say to you, today you shall be with me in paradise. You may be seated. Verse 34 is my focal text, my preaching prop for this morning. Verse 34 is so critical. I want to lift it again. Listen to verse 34. You know it by rote, by memory, but I want to lift it for the sake of emphasis. Jesus prays to the Father, and he simply says, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Here's what I want to talk about this morning. I want to talk about the art of forgiveness. What makes the great great? The art of forgiveness. What makes the great great? Perhaps it was that psychologist Eric Fromm who suggested in his seminal work, The Art of Loving, he suggests that every art has two components. One is theory and the other is praxis, a practice, in which he suggests that every art includes knowledge and practice, suggesting that before you can practice an art, you have to theoretically have knowledge of the art. So I want to talk for just a moment because I believe that there is perhaps a deficit contextually within the realm of reality, that very few people know how to forgive to the degree perhaps the practice is a reflection of knowledge, or perhaps the dysfunctionality of communal life is a reflection of its antonym, unforgiveness, which suggests that if we operate perpetually in a state of unforgiveness, we subversively undermine our future. I want to talk to you about the art of forgiveness. It was, in some sense, part vehicular and part cellular. Contextually, it was a glitch. I just purchased an iPhone and I was trying to make it Bluetooth, perhaps ready, so that I could drive, like many of us ought, hands-free. And while trying to connect the Bluetooth with my cellular device, there was a problem, there was a glitch that perhaps impeded progress. I couldn't, for some apparent reason, I could not catalyze the connection. All of a sudden it dawned on me, call tech support. I called tech support. I want you just to hear a snippet of what happened contextually in my vehicle. Talking to tech support walked me through the procedures. We walked through the procedures. First time, walked through the procedures, nothing happened. Tech support said, well, let's do it again. I tried it again, second time. Didn't happen second time. Third time, tech support said, let's try it one more time. I tried it one more time. Conclusively, it didn't work. I shall never forget the technician's language. Indeed, for me, it was transformative, not to even mention informative, but it changed me just by virtue of the technician's language. Listen to the technician's language. The technician imparted, shared with me, Mr. Kennedy, you don't have a capacity problem. You have a compatibility problem. Says there's nothing wrong with your capacity. You have a compatibility problem. Here's what I want to do just for a moment this morning, because I want to talk to every person here and suggest to you that you have been organically given the capacity for greatness. You don't have a capacity problem. The question is, what's hindering your greatness? I couldn't tell you. It could be a problem of compatibility. I want to talk because the truth is, except we are on the same page in sync with God, we undermine our capacity. Hence, we can possess the capacity for greatness, but never embody it existentially. Hence, never live it out in real form. So if you hear somebody say amen. I want to talk about forgiveness because I think unforgiveness is perhaps the most hideous, insidious infiltration, not only in the life of humanity, but in the life of the church. I want to suggest that unforgiveness has perhaps subtly, insidiously worked its way into the church. Hence, the church with the capacity for greatness, but lacks compatibility. Hence, we are limited in our existential realities, we can't go any further. So I want to share with you why forgiveness is so pertinent and so germane to who we are and what God has designed for our destiny. It was Desmond Tutu, some years ago, who wrote a book, their seminal work, and he titled the work, No Future Without Forgiveness. And of course, Desmond Tutu would talk contextually within the apartheid situation, racial segregation that took place in South Africa. But he talked about the very fact that there's no future. It does not matter who the culprit is, does not matter. Here it is, who perpetuated the crime. He reminds us there is no future without forgiveness. I want to extract some snippets from his work because I think it is portable perhaps to my preaching today. Here's Desmond Tutu. You got to hear Desmond Tutu. Desmond Tutu says that we are bound together in a delicate network of interdependence. Now I want to rewind because you got to hear that. Desmond Tutu says that we're bound together in a delicate network of interdependence. He further notes, thus indeed, forgiveness is the best form of self-interest. I want to say it again. He suggests that forgiveness is the best form of self-interest. If you have any interest in yourself and your well-being, hence your life and livelihood, you got to consider forgiveness. He says forgiveness is the best form of self-interest. And I thought perhaps that wisdom just perhaps flowed from Desmond Tutu. But I read a sermon by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that was perhaps a compilation of a book that was published some years ago, and the title of the book, Strength to Love, in which you got to hear what he says. He posits a sermon, and the sermon is titled, The Man Who Was a Fool. Here's what he says about the man who was a fool. He says, listen to his language, that we all are caught, you see that word caught. Tutu says we're bound. But Martin Luther King Jr. says that we're all caught in an inescapable network of neutrality, a single garment of destiny. That's what he calls it, a single garment of destiny. I want you to look up, because the truth is, there's no way that you can get around forgiving me. There's no way that I can I can get around forgiving you and go on. There is no future without forgiveness. I want to talk about forgiveness for just a moment, because I believe that perhaps there are some people here today who are being held up, perhaps hanged, can't go any further in life, hindered, obviated by the reality of unforgiveness. And I want to talk, because I don't care how clever, how shrewd, how savvy, you may be a savant, but I want to tell you, it doesn't matter if you harbor unforgiveness. I want to talk to you who have anger unresolved, who have resentment that is undealt with. I want to talk to you who've been hurt, wounded, painfully engaged perpetually. I come to suggest to you that you cannot justify your disposition if you are in a state of unforgiveness. Now, if I got any listeners, somebody say amen. I want you to see, contextually, I want you to see Jesus, because you would agree that he's the quintessential image, indeed, paragon for greatness. That there's nobody that exemplifies greatness like Jesus. But perhaps Jesus sent me here to tell you this morning that you'll never walk in your greatness while walking in the spirit of unforgiveness. Because unforgiveness can be hideous and insidious. Indeed, it can be subversive, and it can also be perhaps obviating. You'll never go forward without forgiveness. Now, I want to look at Friday. If you're going to look at it with me, somebody just say Friday. I want to suggest to you that Friday perhaps have been skewed
perhaps contorted. It has been perhaps misinterpreted. Because Friday we call a travesty, that is, of justice, miscarriage of justice, and indeed it is a tragedy. But I've come to tell you that Friday must be looked at from a different vantage point. It's not just a travesty, it is not just a tragedy, it is a transition. It's a transition. Somebody said transition. Now let me say a few things about transition. Transitions can be messy, can be miserable and mysterious, but you still have to maintain your morality while you're moving. Now somebody needs to get it. I'm going to say it again because you got to hear this. Transition can be messy. Can I tell you, whenever the Lord is doing something perhaps great in your life, you have to give yourself to transition. There's no way around transition. And you never know during your transition who's going to be messy. Don't let me talk for a moment. Can I tell you, the same people that he healed, fed, can I tell you on Friday were messy? Can I tell you the same people he helped, the same people he picked up, same people he perhaps emboldened and encouraged, can I tell you they're the same people on Friday turned against him? Perhaps they became messy. Are y'all listening to me? Because you know you've had some friends who turned messy. Because when God is doing something novel and new in your life, friends have a tendency to turn, indeed, they can become messy. But not only was Friday messy, Friday was miserable. Jesus was in misery. But not only was it miserable, it was mysterious. Because he hadn't harmed nobody. But yet he was hanging on the cross. He has not damaged one soul, but yet he's hanging on the cross. And I wish somebody just wake up and go with me. Can I tell you that even when transition is messy, miserable, and mysterious, you still have to maintain your morality? That suggests that you can't cuss folk out just because they are messy. And you can't vengefully and you cannot with venom vituperatively impose on people just because you're going through something. And so you wake up, and I'll give you some good news to tell you that Friday was not what the French calls a coup de grace. No, it was not a death blow to our Lord. No, Friday was what the French calls a coup d'etat. It was a certain turn of events. Now, look up, because I'm telling you, when God gets ready to turn some events, things look bad before they look better. And God has a way of working in darkness to turn things around when those who are onlookers think you're done, and indeed, your life is final. Ought to have some witnesses here. Won't the Lord turn it around? Won't the Lord suddenly shift situations? Won't God make what others perceive as being worse, bad, that is, won't he make it better? And so here's what I want to do with you, a few minutes that we have. I want to suggest to you that there is perhaps an antichrist spirit that is in currency, hence combatively seeks to keep you from the place called forgiveness. And I want you to hear that there are forces that seek to bring you to a place of abasement, hence your baser instincts are prolifically produced to the end that you don't act like you ought to act. You've been in church a long time, then on Friday you don't act like it. Well, let me talk. I said you've been in church a long time, but Leonard Sweet would suggest that the true language of biblical faith is not phonetic, suggesting that you don't form it with your mouth. That the true language of biblical faith is ideographic, it can only be formed with your life. And there's a whole lot of people who have phonetically mouth faith, but no life faith. You got to hear it. Now, if you're listening to me, just say amen. Let me suggest to you that Jesus couldn't come down from the cross, so they tried to coax and cajole him. He tried perhaps to bring him down with ridicule, with mockery, hecklings, but he wouldn't come down. Now you got to understand this. You can't come down to folk level. And I don't care what they say, what they do behaviorally, you cannot, hear me, you cannot shrink, dwarf to their level. Now some of you are guilty because Susie talked to you in a ratchet way. And you went there with her. But you don't understand that you have more to lose than Susie, because you represent something greater than Susie. You can't allow anybody to bring you down to their level. Now y'all ready for this? Let me tell you something that generally unforgiveness is not the reflection of the result of people in your face. Let me say it. On Friday, he had a lot of people in his face. He had hecklers and, of course, those who would sneer and those who would disparage and pejoratively perhaps cast this kind of presence upon him. But no, it was not the people in his face that hindered him. Are y'all ready for this? Your greatest hindrance to forgiveness is not the folk in your face. It's the folks closest to your ear. All right, I got to say it again. They didn't get it. I got to say it again. Can I tell you that he had a thief in his left ear and a thief in his right ear? And can I tell you that they tried to get him to come down because they didn't understand the gravity and the greatness of this man and his mission. But they tried to coax and cajole him to come down. Somebody needs to look up now. You got to be a filter for those people who are closest to your ear. Because some of you would be in better shape if you didn't listen to your best bud about the one who did you wrong. It's never the folk in your face that's going to hinder you. It's the folk in your ear. Now, the question is, who told you not to forgive her? Who told you not to deal with him? All I'm trying to suggest to you, you got to filter the folk who are in your ear. Because the greatest potential to undermine forgiveness is not the folk in your face, it's the folk in your ear. Now, if you're with me, say amen. Let me give you two more points, and then perhaps I'm going to shut it down, lest I defer your departure and you don't show up tomorrow night. I want you to come back tomorrow night. I want you to come back tomorrow night. Let me suggest to you that hurt deeply wounds. And can I tell you that the wound is most intense, provided, hear me, that the person in your face has worked their way into your heart. Nothing hurts deeper than somebody who's penetrated to your heart. I'm going to say it again. There's some folk who've lied on me, and it really didn't matter because they were just in my face. But there's another group of folk who lied on me, and it hurt me deeply because they had penetrated to my heart. And can I tell you, on Friday, our Lord was wounded deeply, not by those who were in his face, but by those who was in his heart. And anybody who gets in your heart can hurt you. C.S. Lewis says that love is never safe. And C.S. Lewis says that we try to walk in a spirit of safety, but the truth is to love at all makes you vulnerable. And anybody you love, anything you love can hurt you. Now, can I raise a question? Is there anybody in here who've ever been hurt? Is there anybody in here who've ever been wounded? Is there anybody in here who've ever been let down by those you've invested the most in? Well, you are a candidate today, because we got to get you to a place called forgiveness so you can go on with your future. Now, somebody say, I got a future to go on to. Now listen to me, you got to hear this. Jesus hanged on the cross for only 6 hours. Here it is, you got to hear this. But if he had not forgiven, only God knows how long he would be hanging. Can I tell you, his first act, Walter Brigham says, is his signature act. It's the most radical behavior of Jesus, suggesting that if he had not forgiven first, he never would have achieved, hence, he never would have finished his assignment. Before he could go on, he had to forgive. We never would hear him say, Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit, if we didn't hear him say first, forgive them. Now y'all look up. Somebody said 6 hours. Because the truth is, some of us have been stuck hanging for now 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, when the Lord only meant for you to be there for 6 hours. But you can't go on because you harbor vengefulness, resentment, and anger, and it keeps you hanging much longer than you ought to be. Some of you know you ought to be further along, but you've been so nasty to those who were nasty towards you. You've been as vicious as those who were vicious towards you. And you don't understand that you are tied in a single garment of destiny. And you can't go on until you release yourself. So here it is, and I'm going to shut it because I'm getting too happy now. Here are a few things I want to leave with you. I want to first leave with you what I call the fight of forgiveness. Because if you're not careful, you'll glibly perhaps slide over the text and won't see the deep extrapolations of the text. So let me give you the extrapolations of the text. Here it is. We hear Jesus' first utterance, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. But here's what we forget. It was not his immediate utterance. It was his first utterance. Okay, I'm going to say it again. It was not his immediate utterance. It was his first utterance. If you're not careful, you'll think that when they literally commenced to beat him, that he said, Father, forgive him. No. You would think that when they perhaps pedestrian him from the corridors of judgment, from hall to hall, you would think that immediately he said, Father, forgive him. No, he didn't. Can I tell you, he was hanging on that cross for 6 hours. And I don't know what hour it was, but I know it wasn't immediate. All I'm trying to tell some of you, it's all right to have a fight with forgiveness. Because when you've been wounded and when you've been scarred, you don't forgive overnight. You got to work through the process. And the process can be a struggle. The process can be a strain. But you got to keep on stretching. You got to keep on working until forgiveness comes out of your heart. Now, I'm just trying to get somebody to wake up to reality now. You don't get to some forgiveness overnight. Because sometimes you're hurt so deeply and so wounded until it takes you a while to overcome What has deeply wounded you? Now, am I here by myself? Do I have any witnesses here? And I want to tell you this morning, maybe I'm talking to you, that you can't put yourself down because you've been fighting with forgiveness. You want to forgive. You know it's right to forgive. But on the inside, you're warring with yourself. You're wondering, if you forgive, do I appear to be soft? Will people take advantage of me? God sent me here to tell you, keep on fighting. Somebody said, keep on fighting. I said, keep on fighting. You may not be talking perhaps as smooth or intelligent as you all talk right now. And maybe every time you hear their name, there wells up words of contradiction to your Christian witness. But I want to tell you, lift up your head. Keep fighting with forgiveness. It's on the inside. You got to keep on fighting. That's the fight of it. Let me give you what I call the future of it. Then I'll give you the faith of it, and then we're going to shut it down for the day. Let me give you the future of it. Are y'all ready for the future? Jesus says to the thief, this day thou shalt be with me in paradise. Y'all see that, right? Well, here's the point. You can't let nobody prevent you from your paradise. If Jesus had not forgiven, he would have spit on the cross in the grave. But because he forgave, he said, my permanent place is paradise. Now somebody, I don't know what your paradise looks like, but I want to tell you, it's your future. And you can't let nothing or nobody hinder your destiny. And whenever you feel, hear me, whenever you feel erroneously engaged in that which you ought not blurt out, remember the future of forgiveness. I have a paradise. Somebody say, I have something better. I have something greater. I have something eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, neither hath it entered into the heart of men. I have something great. I'm going to my seat now. But you see the future, don't you? I won't tell you, let nobody hinder your future. Let nobody be the obstacle, the roadblock to your future. I love you, honey, but I want to tell you this. I love you enough to set you free. I got somewhere to go. You ain't going to hinder me. Destiny summons me. I got somewhere to be. And it's called paradise. Paradise. And you ain't going to hinder me. No, I had hell with you, but you ain't going to hinder me no more. I felt betrayed by you, but you ain't going to hinder me no more. You turned your back. You turned into a coat, a turncoat. I trusted in you. You betrayed my trust. But I'm letting you go today because I got somewhere to go. And I can't hold you because if I hold you, you hold me back. Now, can I give you one more? And I promise I'm going to exit. Can I give you what I call now the faith of forgiveness? Because you got to go through the fight. Got to see your future. And when you go through the fight and see your future, can I tell you, the fight and the future forges faith. So let me show you the faith. Here's the faith. Jesus says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Now look up, because some of you are skewed by the syntax. Hence, you don't concern yourself with the arrangement of the passage. But let me give you the arrangement of the passage, and then we're going to shout together. Can I tell you why so many of you have held and harbored, indeed stored, hoarded, hurt in your heart and won't let it go? Can I tell you, you're trying to do it yourself. Jesus says, I'm too wounded. I'm too hurt. The pain is too excruciating for me to do it myself. Because I see some rascals down there at the cross that ought not be treating me the way they treated me. But Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Now, can I give you syntactical correction? Listen to the text. He says, Father, forgive them. Here's what he does not say. He does not say, them, Father, forgive. Now, y'all got to hear it again. I'm going to give it again. He says, Father, forgive them. He does not say, them, Father, forgive. Somebody say, well, what's the big deal? Here's the big deal. He makes the Father his focus and not them. And here's what he says. I want to be right with my Father. And I'm not going to let them hinder me from right relationship with him. I need him. They don't wake me up. They can't get me up. They can't put food on my table. I need. He gives me strength. He gives me joy. He gives me peace. He's the lifter of my head. I need. They can't strengthen me. They can't encourage me. They can't pick me up. They can't dust me off. I need. That's all I want to say. I don't know how you feel about it, but I need him. And I'm finished when I tell you, Jesus says you got to trust him to do what you can't do, but you got to do what you can do. And when you trust him to do what you can't do, he'll do what he can do. And if you work in sync with him, we can do it together. On Friday, God, yes, helped Jesus forgive. Can I tell you what really happened on Friday? On Friday, God forgave God. Because in order for him, are y'all listening to me, to forgive me, he had to forgive himself first. Because my sins were laid upon him. And God had to forgive Jesus, who had done no wrong, so that he might forgive me. And thank God I'm forgiven. I said, thank God I'm forgiven. He died on Friday, buried in Joseph's tomb. But early Sunday morning, I said early Sunday morning, if you forgive, grave can't hold you. Death can't hold you. If you forgive, God will get you up. Do I have any witnesses here? I said he'll get you up and then send word where you've been in Jerusalem to tell them that you're up. I said he'll get you up